of Emergency Management and Community Resilience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, and I will be splitting my time with the member for Burnaby Central. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to address the House today about the Combating Hate Act, which is a law that will protect all Canadians better. But I think we need to talk about how we got to the Combating Hate Act. And as a member of the Jewish community of Canada, I would have to start with the fact that since October 7th, 2023, the Jewish community of Canada has faced an increasing barrage of hate. It goes up and it goes down. But the fact that one group that represents 1.2% of the Canadian population faces 70% of religiously based hate crimes, the fact that this group has had its synagogue shot at 3 times in the last week, the fact that this group has had schools shot at, the fact that this group has had people standing outside its community centers, its schools, and its synagogues, yelling vile chants, blaming the people in the building for what is happening across the world, telling the people in the building they should go back to Poland when many of us have been in this country for 6 and 7 generations or more. We have been here since the beginning of this country. We are as Canadian as anyone else. And the idea that we should be told to go back somewhere else is beyond belief, beyond any reasonable comment. And so when you hear outside of our synagogues and schools chants that call for our destruction, calls for our demise, that is not okay. When you say globalize the Intifada, which is a call by Hamas to call for the destruction of the Jewish people, not only in Israel but across the world, that is not okay. And so we got to this place in a way that was really, really bad. We saw hate in this country going way up against Jews, but against other groups as well. We've had shootings at a mosque in Quebec City. We've had a couple of Muslims killed in London, Ontario. We've had Christian churches burned across this country. We've had protests and unfair ones outside of gurdwaras and temples. This law is meant to protect. And last year, and many members in this committee, il y avait des gens, le membre de Rivière-du-Nord qui était là, il y avait des membres du Parti conservateur. On a eu des auditions à la Commission sur la justice. Et on a fait une étude sur la question de l'antisémitisme au Canada et qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire pour améliorer nos lois, pour éviter d'avoir la haine dans notre pays. Et on a fait des recommandations. Et je vais vous citer, Monsieur le Président, 4 recommandations qui étaient faites par le comité qui sont dans le projet de loi C9. Recommendation 10, that the federal parliament consider creating a new intimidation offense under the criminal code to more clearly and directly protect entrance to and exit from community buildings such as schools, places of worship, and community centers, in addition to existing offenses that may apply in situations where such buildings are being blocked. Recommendation number 15, that the Government of Canada consider removing the requirement to obtain the consent of the Provincial Attorney General in order to prosecute certain hate crimes. Now, at the committee, we've agreed to drop that, but that was in the bill. It was recommended by the committee. Recommendation 16, that the Government of Canada take steps to ban the display of symbols of terrorist organizations that are listed under the Criminal Code. That is in the bill. Recommendation 17, that the Government of Canada work with police forces across the country to develop a standardized definition of hate crime. That standardized definition of hate is in the bill, and we have agreed with our colleagues in both other parties to amend the bill to ensure that that definition is in line with Kijkstra. As a result of those recommendations, you have had Jewish organizations across the country. I will point out the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs, the Alliance of Canadians Combating Anti-Semitism, B'nai B'rith Canada, the Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism, the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Centre, that have put out joint statements calling on this House and this Parliament to work together to pass this bill. And, Mr. Speaker, I would also note that the issue is even more pressing given the situation last weekend with the 3 shootings at synagogues in Toronto. There was a press conference on Sunday that was attended by representatives of both the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, as well as members of the Ontario government and the Toronto City government and police forces of different jurisdictions. And there was a commitment made by everybody to a nonpartisan approach to tackling the horrible anti-Semitism that is being faced by Canadian Jews today. Every Canadian has a right to feel safe in Canada and be safe in Canada, and that includes the Jewish community. I was hoping, and I very much had hoped, that that type of a press conference would convince my colleagues across the aisle to support this bill. Because this bill is the #1 thing that has been asked for by the Jewish community in order to confront anti-Semitism. It has all of the elements there. So, Mr. Speaker, it was a bit disappointing today to hear that my colleagues across the aisle are still not prepared to support this bill. I do want to say that the arguments that they're making about religious freedom are not correct. I believe that they have... I will read the words of Joseph Neuberger. Joseph Neuberger is the head of... He's a criminal lawyer with Neuberger & Partners LLP and the chair of the Canadian Jewish Law Association, but also a Conservative Party supporter, as he declares in this article. His article says, Bill C-9 doesn't threaten religious freedom. It draws a necessary line. Bill C-9 does not regulate belief, worship, sermons, or religious teaching. It does not criminalize disagreement or political debate. Claims that Bill C-9, the Combating Hate Act, threaten religious freedoms in Canada are false. They are not supported by the bill itself, by the Constitution, or by decades of court decisions. More than that, the claim that Bill C-9 undermines religious freedom is not a matter of interpretation or reasonable disagreement. It is misinformation. Religious freedom is explicitly protected by Section 2A of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and has been repeatedly affirmed by Canadian courts as a core constitutional guarantee. Nothing in Bill C-9 amends, limits, or conditions that protection. The bill does not interfere with worship, belief, religious teaching, sermons, or doctrine. To suggest otherwise is to assert a legal effect that simply does not exist. I agree entirely, Mr. Speaker, with what Mr. Neuberger said. We are removing a defense that has not once been successfully used in Canadian history. Et ce défense est utilisé uniquement par des gens qui ont déjà été accusés d'avoir promouvoir de la haine. Il y a déjà un standard qui est très élevé pour ça. Donc, vous êtes en train de dire que quelqu'un qui se promène dans la rue pour promouvoir de la haine contre des gens de notre pays est accusé. Là, c'est là que vous avez cette défense-là. Vous n'avez pas cette défense-là avant, vous avez les défenses-là après que la personne est déjà accusée d'avoir promouvoir la haine au Canada avec un standard très élevé. So, Mr. Speaker, I will end by the following. I'm very much hoping that my colleagues opposite will reconsider. Right now at the Justice Committee, after hours and hours and hours of Conservative filibustering, we're actually studying a sub-amendment by a Conservative member that would essentially mean you could never have anyone charged with willful promotion of hate in Canada. I think most of the members of the opposition party would be shocked if they actually saw what that amendment was saying. And I really very much hope, Mr. Speaker, that people will reconsider and we can all pass this bill. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et comments.